Hi, I'm Lisa Heddens, Story County candidate for County Supervisor. I've had the honor to serve Story County in a couple of capacities. First, as a state representative representing House District 46, and most recently as your supervisor. And I'm asking you for your vote for another term. A little background about myself. I'm married and have 2 adult children, Mackenzie and Paul. It is my son Paul who really gave me the initiative to run for public office. You see, my son has an intellectual disability, and I found when I was trying to seek out services for him that the quote-unquote system was hard to navigate, and figured that if it was challenging for me, it must be challenging for other people. So I decided I could complain about it or do something about it, and that's how I first ran for office. While in the legislature, I worked bipartisanly to pass comprehensive legislation, whether it be on mental health and disability issues, economic development, environmental, addressing our veterans. I was able to work to passage on legislation, and I've carried that role to the Board of Supervisors. Currently, I serve on the governing board for our mental health and disabilities region, which is comprised of 15 counties, and I'm the Story County representative. Being that mental health is such a strong area that we need to be addressing because it affects our students at school, our parents, our siblings, our friends, our colleagues, we need to make sure that we have access to mental health services when people need it and where they need it in a timely fashion. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you, and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to. Good question, Greg. So Story County has our Cornerstone to Capstone plan that really looks out to 2036. So we've already got kind of that long-term plan that we are looking at, and that really encompasses looking at growth patterns, economic development growth, recreational activities, agriculture, housing development, so a really broad continuum. It is a living document so that it can change as we get more information, and also to look at it how it fits in with our capital improvements plan, as well as how it fits in with our infrastructure, our roads and bridges. We always develop a 5-year plan with that as well, so that we can really be ready to respond when we hear that a new business wants to come in. And Story County, we can't work at it alone. We need to work with other communities. We need to work with Ames. We need to work with the AEDC and the NEDC, with our smaller communities to help foster that growth so that we can have a vibrant Story County.
Do you see a place for the county at the table for urban development?
Certainly do. Again, I don't think you can do things all in silos. You have to have that conversation together so that we can know where growth is wanting to occur and identify areas within the county that can help support that, can help foster that. We really, as supervisors, try to look at that broad range of economic development. We also need to balance that, though. We are an agriculture state and agriculture county, so make sure we're balancing with agricultural opportunities as well. Sure. I mean, housing is a big issue, not just in Story County and Iowa, and other states as well. So certainly need that. Story County took the initiative a couple years ago and did a housing study that included all areas of Story County with the exception of Ames, because Ames had just completed theirs. And the study really looked at where should housing occur? How much housing? What types of housing do you need? Rental property? Is it townhomes or condos? Is it single family, multifamily? So are some of the areas that we looked at. With that, then we set in motion to develop an action plan, and so we've submitted an RFP to help have an individual help implement elements of our housing study. And we've also have dedicated staff. So we take this as a huge priority for us to look at. We've also looked at resources that we've put into, for example, the Story County Housing Trust Fund to help with their initiatives to help first home buyers with some funds, to help address utility costs, to help purchase a Homes for Iowa home and help with that affordability of homes. We've also put dollars into Home Allies that's looking to develop a affordable housing here in Ames, or we put in money to Colo, for example, the small community of Colo, they have land to provide some infrastructure for them for a housing development as well. And then lastly, we've put in some dollars into the Bridge Home. We know homelessness is also another issue. And folks that are homeless, they also need housing, some sort of stable housing, so that they can get into a better cycle of jobs, health care, and other things to help them prosper as well. If we don't do anything, the negative impacts is it impacts our schools. It impacts our employers, our businesses, if we don't have ready available housing. So when you're looking at bringing in an industry to Story County, that's what folks are going to look at. They're going to look at, are there schools? Do you have good schools if you've got kids? They're going to look at, what are your healthcare facilities? What are your infrastructure at? What are your recreation opportunities? And definitely, where am I going to live? Where do I have that opportunity to live? And is it going to be something that's affordable in whatever price range you're in? Certainly, broadband is definitely a need to have in 2022 and beyond. We need to make sure we have the uploads and downloads for future, because we just know that it's going to grow, that area is going to particularly grow. COVID certainly showed us the tragic side of the pandemic, but also the other side of where are gaps and what do we need to help if folks are wanting to work from home or have to work from home and having that broadband access. We were working previously under some old data, old maps, for example, as to where broadband was available. You might live, Greg, you and I could live, let's say, on the same street, and you might have broadband access, and I might live a half a mile down and don't, but the old maps would say that there was broadband available in your area. Not necessarily true. So the FCC and the OCIO should be coming out with their updated maps that we can have a little bit more pinpointed where the needs are. In the meantime, we did receive about $18.9 million in the American Rescue Fund dollars, and we were able to take a portion of those funds and do as a match to our local telcos that were able to pull down about $14 million in funds to help expand out broadband in other areas that we are aware of that are underserved. I'm looking forward to those updated maps so that we can do a bit more targeting and working with our local telcos, because Story County itself are not a provider. We need to do those partnerships to expand that out so that everybody has that type of access, because they're certainly going to need that in, as you said, 2022 and beyond. Yeah, so there's a couple prongs that you can look at. So we do provide funding to what we call a Story County Asset. It's our safety net program, our safety net funding program. And each year that I've been on the board, we've increased our funding allocation by 5% to Asset. And one of the priorities, the county priorities and the other organizations' priorities, is childcare. So money is getting designated to increase child care needs. I know it is an issue because I've been door knocking and talking with families that have talked about, gosh, I've been on a waiting list for 1 to 2 years to get into child care. You also need to work with our state partners as well, helping with the quality of child care, reimbursement for child care as well, is an additional role that we can play in. Lastly, is we, again, with those American Rescue Funds, those ARPA funds, we were able to provide some funding towards child care needs in some of our smaller communities in Slater and in Huxley to help with staff retention and to help grow and expand the business so that we can provide more childcare. And I think we're going to have more opportunities to do that. I think that's more of a need that we definitely need to look at, and working with our business partners as well, looking at, are they wanting to have childcare opportunities at their business, or looking at where is childcare located to the need of where that business is. Are some of the centers, I guess you'd say, in the right locations? Something like that, then we would want to work with Child Care Resource and Referral and see, who are they working with to help expand that out within our county, or within our communities within the county. Oh gosh, that's a good question. We are playing an active role in economic development. We have the Story County Economic Development Group that's been in existence for about 40 years. And we've really tried to provide funding to all the communities within Story County, and have been pretty successful in that with the various grants that we've been able to provide. It's having us at the table, having a board member at the table. I serve on the Ames Economic Development Commission. Supervisor Faisal serves on the Nevada Economic Development Commission. If we don't know what's going on, it's kind of hard to make particular changes. So it's having that seat at the table to help with that. Some of the areas that we need to work on in regards to economic development is our infrastructure. We want to make sure that we have a strong infrastructure. Our roads and bridges are being well taken care of. We have 1,000 miles of roads in Story County and 270 bridges. So we want to make sure, looking at our 5-year plan, that we are able to address the aging needs that are going on there. We want to make sure that we do have housing. We talked about housing. We want to make sure we've got a strong housing availability so that when businesses come in, or the ones that are trying to retain staff, we've got that stock available. We talked about broadband. We need to have that as well, because that's just the trend of the nature of business and how folks are wanting to work, whether it's solely within the office or solely working at home or a hybrid of two. Broadband is the future, and making sure that we have the right speeds to be able to do that. And you can't do anything alone in a vacuum. You have to work with your partners. So you need to work with the other communities. You need to work with the other businesses and be aware of what's going on so that we can collaboratively work together and help Story County grow and prosper.